The Immaterium, commonly known as the Warp, stands as a cornerstone of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. This otherworldly dimension permeates every aspect of the grim, dark future, shaping the fate of countless worlds and civilizations. Without the Warp, the very fabric of the 40k setting would unravel, leaving a vastly different and perhaps unrecognizable universe in its wake. At its core, the Immaterium serves as the lifeblood of interstellar travel and communication. Vast distances between star systems become traversable through warp travel, allowing humanity to maintain its fragile grip on a galaxy-spanning empire. The Astronomicon, a psychic beacon powered by the Emperor's immense will, guides Imperial ships through the tumultuous seas of the Warp, enabling the coherence of the Imperium across unimaginable distances. Beyond its practical applications, the Warp represents the primary antagonistic force in the 40k narrative. From this realm of pure psychic energy emerge the corrupting influences of chaos, threatening to consume all of reality in a tide of madness and entropy. The eternal struggle against these dark forces defines the existential conflict at the heart of the setting, pitting order against chaos, reality against unreality, in a war that spans millennia. Understanding the Immaterium is crucial for grasping the motivations and actions of key factions within the 40k universe. The Adeptus Mechanicus, driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge, seeks to unravel its scientific principles. Their quest for understanding often leads them to the very brink of tech heresy, as they attempt to reconcile the Warp's mystical nature with their own logic-driven philosophies. Meanwhile, the Inquisition stands as a bulwark against the corrupting influence of the Immaterium. These secretive and powerful agents of the Imperium tirelessly hunt for signs of chaos taint, rooting out heretics and demons with fanatical zeal. Their actions, while often brutal and extreme, are born from the very real threat that the Warp poses to humanity's survival. Space Marine librarians and Imperial psychers walk a precarious path, drawing upon the power of the Warp to defend mankind. These individuals tread a razor's edge between salvation and damnation, their minds constantly at risk of being overwhelmed by the very forces they seek to control. The danger they face is a microcosm of humanity's relationship with the Immaterium, a necessary evil that must be harnessed despite the immense risks involved. The Warp's influence extends far beyond the boundaries of the Imperium. Xenos races, each with their own unique relationship to the Immaterium, add layers of complexity to the cosmic struggle. The Eldar, once masters of the Warp, now live in fear of the hungry god their excesses birthed. Their every action is guided by the need to avoid the gaze of Slaanesh, even as they continue to rely on their psychic abilities for survival. Orcs, with their innate psychic gestalt field, interact with the Warp in ways that defy Imperial understanding. Their collective belief somehow manifests in reality, allowing impossible technologies to function through sheer force of will. This phenomenon highlights the Immaterium's nature as a realm shaped by thought and emotion, blurring the lines between reality and imagination. The Tyranid hive mind presents a unique threat in relation to the Warp. As these extragalactic predators approach, they cast a shadow in the Immaterium, disrupting psychic communications and driving psychers to madness. This shadow in the Warp serves as a chilling reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in humanity's reliance on the Immaterium for its continued existence. Necrons, ancient soulless beings, stand apart from the conflicts surrounding the Warp. Their advanced technology allows for faster-than-light travel without relying on the Immaterium, presenting a stark contrast to the methods employed by other races. Yet even these timeless entities cannot entirely escape the influence of the Warp, as certain Necron lords seek to understand the nature of the soul in their quest to reverse their biotransference. The Tau, relative newcomers to the galactic stage, have only begun to grasp the true nature of the Immaterium. Their limited psychic presence has, thus far, shielded them from the worst of the Warp's predations. However, as they expand their empire and encounter more of the galaxy's horrors, The Tau may find their philosophy of the greater good tested by the harsh realities of a universe where hell itself lurks just beyond the veil of reality. Within this complex web of factions and motivations, the Immaterium serves as both the stage and the prize for the greatest conflicts in the 41st millennium. The Horus Heresy, perhaps the most pivotal event in Imperial history, was fundamentally a war fought over the nature and use of warp energies. The Primarch Horus, corrupted by the ruinous powers, sought to harness the Immaterium in ways that would have spelled doom for humanity. Even in the present era, the battle for the warp continues. The 13th Black Crusade and the formation of the Great Rift have torn reality asunder, allowing the influence of the Immaterium to spill into real space on an unprecedented scale. Entire sectors of the Imperium have been cut off from the Emperor's light, left to fend for themselves in a galaxy gone mad. As the barriers between real space and the warp grow ever thinner, the importance of understanding and controlling the Immaterium becomes paramount. The fate of entire civilizations hangs in the balance, with the victors of this cosmic struggle poised to shape the destiny of the galaxy for millennia to come. In the grim darkness of the far future, the warp stands as a constant reminder of the fragility of reality and the terrible price of power. It is a source of humanity's greatest strengths and its most crippling weaknesses, a realm of infinite possibility and unimaginable horror. To understand the Immaterium is to understand the very heart of Warhammer 40,000, a universe where hope and despair walk hand in hand, and the line between savior and destroyer is often thinner than the edge of a power sword. Primordial origins of the Immaterium stretch back to the very dawn of time, predating the birth of stars and the formation of galaxies. Ancient myths speak of an era when reality existed as a unified whole, unsplit between the material and immaterial realms. This primeval state, however, was not destined to last. As sentient life evolved and expanded across the cosmos, a profound change began to take shape. The collective thoughts, emotions, and desires of countless beings coalesced, giving rise to a separate dimension of pure psychic energy. Thus, the warp was born, a realm as vast and infinite as the material universe itself. Initially, the Immaterium existed as a calm and orderly dimension, mirroring the relatively simple psyches of primitive species. Gentle currents of psychic energy flowed through this nascent realm, undisturbed by the tumultuous emotions that would later come to define it. This period of tranquility, however, was merely the calm before an approaching storm of cosmic proportions. Gradual evolution of civilizations across the galaxy left an indelible mark upon the warp. Each race's cultural, technological, and spiritual development resonated within the Immaterium, shaping its currents and giving birth to new psychic phenomena. The rise and fall of countless alien empires echoed through the warp, their triumphs and tragedies etched into the very fabric of this otherworldly dimension. Arguably, no event had a more profound impact on the nature of the Immaterium than the war in heaven. This ancient conflict, waged between the Old Ones and the Necrontyr, forever altered the balance between real space and the warp. Desperate to turn the tide of war, the Old Ones created psychically attuned races to combat their foes. This decision led to a massive influx of warp energy, dramatically reshaping the Immaterium's landscape. Consequences of the war in heaven reverberate through time, influencing the state of the galaxy even in the 41st millennium. The tumultuous period following the conflict saw the birth of many warp entities, including the nascent forms of what would later become known as the Chaos Gods. These powerful beings, born from the strongest emotions and desires of mortal races, would come to dominate the Immaterium and pose an ever-present threat to real space. Humanity's relationship with the warp has been long and fraught with danger. Early human civilizations produced psychers who could tap into the Immaterium's power, but these individuals often fell prey to possession or madness. The Age of Strife, a dark period in human history, was largely precipitated by a massive increase in psychic activity and warp storms that isolated human colonies across the galaxy. Eldar, an ancient and highly psychic race, learned to manipulate warp energies with unparalleled skill. Their mastery over the Immaterium allowed them to create a vast empire spanning much of the galaxy. However, this power came at a terrible cost. The Eldar's decadence and excess eventually gave birth to Slaanesh, the chaos god of pleasure and excess. The psychic shockwave of Slaanesh's birth tore a massive rift in real space known as the Eye of Terror, forever changing the relationship between the material universe and the warp. Emergence of the Emperor of Mankind marked a turning point in humanity's interaction with the Immaterium. This immortal being, possessing psychic powers beyond comprehension, guided humanity towards a new era of expansion and enlightenment. Under the Emperor's rule, humanity began to harness the power of the warp in ways previously thought impossible. Development of the Navigators, a subspecies of humans with the unique ability to perceive the currents of the warp, revolutionized interstellar travel. These mutants could guide spacecraft through the treacherous tides of the Immaterium, allowing for faster and safer journeys between distant star systems. This advancement paved the way for the Great Crusade, a massive campaign to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under the Emperor's rule. Creation of the Astronomicon, a psychic beacon powered by the Emperor's own immense will, further solidified humanity's mastery over warp travel. This cosmic lighthouse allowed for safer passage through the Immaterium, enabling the rapid expansion of the nascent Imperium of man. However, the Astronomicon also had unintended consequences, its bright psychic presence in the warp attracting the attention of darker forces. Throughout the millennia, various factions have sought to study, control, or exploit the power of the warp. The Adeptus Mechanicus, driven by their quest for knowledge, developed technologies to interact with and protect against the Immaterium's influence. Geller fields creating bubbles of real space around spacecraft allowed for safer warp travel. Meanwhile, the Inquisition was formed to guard against the corrupting influence of chaos, hunting down heretics and demons with ruthless efficiency. Horus Heresy, a galaxy-spanning civil war, demonstrated the terrible potential of the warp when turned against humanity. The War Master Horus, greatest of the Emperor's genetically engineered Primarchs, fell to the corrupting influence of chaos after being wounded on the moon of Davin. His subsequent rebellion split the Imperium in two, with half of the Space Marine legions turning traitor. The climax of this conflict saw Horus and the Emperor engage in a titanic psychic battle that reshaped the warp itself, ultimately resulting in the Emperor's internment upon the Golden Throne. Aftermath of the Horus. Heresy left an indelible mark on both the Imperium and the Immaterium. The Emperor, now sustained only by the power of the Golden Throne, became a godlike figure to the teeming masses of humanity. His psychic presence in the warp grew even stronger, acting as a bulwark against the encroaching forces of chaos. Meanwhile, the traitor legions fled into the Eye of Terror, where the laws of physics break down and the influence of the warp reigns supreme. Age of Apostasy, a time of great turmoil within the Imperium, was marked by increased warp activity and demonic incursions. The reign of the Mad High Lord Goga von Deer saw widespread corruption and the weakening of the barriers between real space and the Immaterium. It was only through the actions of Sebastian Thor and the daughters of the Emperor, later known as the Adepta Sororitas, that this dark age was brought to an end, and the Imperium's faith was restored. Recent millennia have seen a steady escalation in warp-related threats to the Imperium. Black Crusades, led by Abaddon the Despoiler, have spilled forth from the Eye of Terror with increasing frequency. Each of these massive invasions seeks to further weaken the barriers between real space and the warp, paving the way for the final victory of chaos. Tyranid hive fleets, drawn to our galaxy by the psychic beacon of the Astronomicon, present a unique threat in relation to the warp. Their approach creates a phenomenon known as the shadow in the warp, disrupting psychic communications and driving psychers to madness or suicide. This chilling development raises the possibility that humanity's greatest tool for navigation may also be leading to its doom. As the 41st millennium draws to a close, the influence of the warp grows ever stronger. The Psychic Awakening, a galaxy-wide surge in psychic activity, has further blurred the lines between real space and the Immaterium. Many believe this to be a prelude to humanity's psychic evolution, while others fear it heralds the final victory of chaos. In this grim, dark future, the Immaterium stands as both humanity's greatest hope and its most terrible threat. The ongoing struggle to understand, control, and defend against the powers of the warp continues to shape the destiny of countless worlds and trillions of souls across the galaxy. Countless pivotal moments have shaped the Immaterium's influence on the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These events, spanning millennia, have profoundly altered the balance between real space and the warp, leaving indelible marks on both dimensions. Birth of Slaanesh stands as perhaps the most cataclysmic event in the history of the warp. The Eldar, at the height of their decadence, unwittingly gave form to a new chaos god through their excessive hedonism. Slaanesh's violent awakening tore a massive rift in real space, creating the Eye of Terror. This swirling maelstrom of warp energy swallowed whole swaths of the Eldar Empire, forever changing the galactic landscape. The psychic shockwave of Slaanesh's birth echoed through the warp, altering its very nature and marking the end of the Eldar's dominance. Emperor of mankind's great crusade reshaped humanity's relationship with the Immaterium. Uniting Terra and Mars, the Emperor led a massive campaign to reclaim human-settled worlds lost during the Age of Strife. His mastery over warp energies allowed for the creation of the Astronomicon, a psychic beacon that revolutionized warp travel. This cosmic lighthouse guided Imperial ships through the tumultuous tides of the Immaterium, enabling rapid expansion across the galaxy. Horus Heresy, a galactic civil war of unprecedented scale, demonstrated the terrible potential of the warp when turned against humanity. Horus, the Emperor's most favored son, fell to chaos after being wounded on Davin. His corruption split the Imperium in two, with half of the Space Marine legions turning traitor. The final battle on Horus's flagship saw a titanic psychic duel between father and son. Their conflict reshaped the warp itself, ultimately resulting in the Emperor's internment upon the Golden Throne and the birth of the Imperial cult. Age of Apostasy brought a new wave of warp-related threats to the Imperium. Under the tyrannical rule of Goga Van Dire, widespread corruption weakened the barriers between real space and the Immaterium. Demonic incursions increased dramatically, threatening to tear the Imperium apart from within. Sebastian Thor's rebellion, backed by the Daughters of the Emperor, eventually toppled Van Dire's regime. This period reshaped the ecclesiarchy and led to the formation of the Adepta Sororitas, further influencing humanity's spiritual connection to the warp. Tyrannic wars introduced a new and terrifying threat related to the Immaterium. The approach of the Tyranid hive fleets created a phenomenon known as the shadow in the warp. This psychic void disrupted astropathic communications and drove many psychers to madness or suicide. The Tyranids' ability to interfere with warp energies on such a massive scale forced the Imperium to adapt its strategies, both in warfare and interstellar travel. Gothic War, also known as the 12th Black Crusade, saw Abaddon the Despoiler lead Chaos forces in a campaign to capture the Blackstone fortresses. These ancient structures, capable of harnessing warp energy on an immense scale, represented a significant threat to the Imperium. The conflict highlighted the ongoing struggle to control warp-based technologies and the constant danger posed by chaos incursions from the Eye of Terror. Gathering Storm marked a series of cataclysmic events that drastically altered the galaxy. The awakening of Ennead, the Eldar god of the dead, offered new hope against Slaanesh's dominance in the warp. Simultaneously, the 13th Black Crusade led by Abaddon resulted in the destruction of Cadia, a fortress world that had long stood as a bulwark against chaos. The fall of Cadia's pylons, ancient devices that had helped maintain the barrier between real space and the warp, had far-reaching consequences. Cicatrix Maledictum, also known as the Great Rift, tore across the galaxy following Cadia's fall. This vast warp storm split the Imperium in two, plunging many worlds into darkness. The Noctis Aeterna, a period of psychic blackout, left much of the Imperium cut off from the Astronomican's guiding light. This event dramatically increased warp activity across the galaxy, allowing for easier demonic incursions and further blurring the lines between real space and the Immaterium. Psychic Awakening, a galaxy-wide phenomenon, saw a surge in psychic activity across human populations. This ongoing event has led to a dramatic increase in the number of psychers being born, as well as the manifestation of new and terrifying warp phenomena. Many believe this to be a prelude to humanity's psychic evolution, while others fear it heralds the final victory of chaos. The Psychic Awakening has forced the Imperium to adapt rapidly, both in its management of psychers and its defenses against warp-based threats. Indomitus Crusade, led by the resurrected Primarch Roboute Guilliman, sought to push back against the encroaching forces of chaos following the formation of the Great Rift. Guilliman's return, facilitated by the combined efforts of the Imperium and the Eldar, represented a significant shift in the balance of power. His crusade not only reclaimed many worlds lost to chaos, but also implemented sweeping reforms in how the Imperium interacts with and defends against warp-based threats. War of the Spider saw increased warp activity in the wake of the Psychic Awakening. This conflict, centered around the twisted experiments of the renegade biologist Fabius Bile, highlighted the ongoing threat posed by chaos-corrupted individuals. Bile's attempts to create perfect beings drew heavily on warp energies, blurring the lines between science and sorcery. Pariah Nexus, a region of space where the influence of the warp is dramatically reduced, emerged as a new threat to the galaxy. Created by the Necrons using advanced anti-psychic technology, the Pariah Nexus represents a different kind of danger to warp-dependent races. This event has forced many factions to reconsider their reliance on psychic powers and warp travel, potentially reshaping future conflicts. Plague wars, instigated by the forces of Nurgle, demonstrated the continued threat posed by the Chaos Gods. These conflicts saw warp-born plagues ravage numerous worlds, with Nurgle's forces attempting to turn vast swaths of the Imperium into extensions of his garden in the warp. The Plague Wars highlighted the cyclical nature of chaos incursions and the constant vigilance required to maintain the barriers between real space and the Immaterium. Each of these key events has not only shaped the political and military landscape of the galaxy, but has also had profound effects on the nature of the Immaterium itself. The warp, being a realm shaped by thought and emotion, bears the scars of these momentous occurrences. As the 41st millennium progresses, the influence of the warp grows ever stronger, promising more reality-altering events in the future of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Delving into the nature of the Immaterium reveals a realm of mind-bending complexity and paradox. Unlike the material universe, the warp defies conventional physics, existing as a dimension of pure psychic energy. Its ever-shifting tides reflect the collective consciousness of sentient beings, making it a mirror to the hopes, fears, and desires of countless souls across the galaxy. Fundamentally, the warp is a non-linear realm with regard to time and space. Within its roiling depths, past, present, and future exist simultaneously, allowing for phenomena such as precognition and time travel. This fluid nature of time within the Immaterium is part of what makes it so dangerous and unpredictable. A journey that takes mere days in the warp might correspond to years or even centuries passing in real space, or vice versa. Entities inhabiting the warp range from the tiniest motes of psychic energy to godlike beings of immense power. These warp entities are formed from the collective thoughts and emotions of sentient races, given shape and purpose by the beliefs and actions of mortals. The most powerful of these entities are the Chaos Gods: Khorne, the Blood God; Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways; Nurgle, the Lord of Decay; and Slaanesh, the Dark Prince of Pleasure. Each of these dark gods embodies specific aspects of mortal nature, feeding off the emotions and actions that align with their spheres of influence. Psykers serve as living conduits between the material realm and the Immaterium, their powers ranging from telepathy and divination to the manipulation of matter and energy stem from their ability to draw upon the raw energies of the warp. However, this connection comes at a great risk, as Psykers are constantly in danger of possession by warp entities or being driven mad by the chaotic nature of the Immaterium. Interestingly, the Imperium of Man relies heavily on Psykers for a variety of crucial functions, despite the inherent dangers they pose. Astropaths use their psychic abilities to send messages across vast interstellar distances, while navigators guide spacecraft through the treacherous currents of the warp. The most powerful Psykers may ascend to become Inquisitors or even Grey Knights, elite warriors specially trained to combat the forces of chaos. Technology's relationship with the warp presents another fascinating aspect of the Immaterium. While the laws of physics as we understand them break down within the warp, certain technologies have been developed to interact with or protect against its influence. Geller fields, for example, create a bubble of real space around a spacecraft, allowing it to traverse the warp without being torn apart or invaded by demons. The Imperium's faster-than-light travel relies on warp drives, which create a localized rift between real space and the Immaterium, allowing vessels to enter the warp and cover vast distances in relatively short periods. Soul's nature in the Warhammer 40,000 universe is intrinsically linked to the warp. Many believe that the soul is a reflection of an individual's presence in the Immaterium, with the psychic essence of a person continuing to exist within the warp after death. This belief forms the basis for much of the Imperial cult's teachings and helps explain phenomena such as the Emperor's continued psychic presence despite his physical internment on the Golden Throne. Chaos, as a concept and a force, is perhaps the most direct manifestation of the warp's influence on the material universe. The ruinous powers of chaos seek to break down the barriers between real space and the Immaterium, allowing the raw energies of the warp to flood into the material realm. This would result in a universe of pure chaos, where the laws of physics no longer apply, and reality itself is subject to the whims of the Chaos Gods. Astronomicon, the psychic beacon that guides Imperial ships through the warp, represents one of the most significant ways in which humanity interacts with the Immaterium. Powered by the Emperor's immense psychic might and the sacrifice of thousands of Psykers, the Astronomicon serves as a fixed point in the ever-shifting tides of the warp. However, its bright presence in the Immaterium also attracts the attention of warp predators and may even be drawing the Tyranid hive fleets towards our galaxy. Eldar's fall and the birth of Slaanesh demonstrate the profound impact that mortal actions can have on the warp. The collective psychic presence of an entire species, twisted by millennia of decadence and excess, coalesced into a new chaos god. This event not only reshaped the warp, but also tore a permanent rift between real space and the Immaterium in the form of the Eye of Terror. Shadow in the Warp, the psychic phenomenon caused by the approach of a Tyranid hive fleet, highlights the complex interactions between different species and the Immaterium. The Tyranid's ability to disrupt warp communications and drive Psykers to madness suggests that there may be ways to manipulate or even block the influence of the warp on a massive scale. Pariah Nexus, created by Necron technology, presents a different kind of threat to warp-dependent races. By dramatically reducing the influence of the warp in a region of space, the Pariah Nexus forces us to consider what a universe without the Immaterium might look like. This development raises questions about the nature of reality itself and the role that the warp plays in maintaining the cosmic balance. Orc's relationship with the warp offers yet another perspective on the Immaterium's nature. The Orc's innate psychic field, which allows their impossible technologies to function through sheer collective belief, suggests that the line between the material and immaterial realms may be more blurred than previously thought. This Wach energy demonstrates how the power of belief can shape reality, a principle that lies at the very heart of how the warp interacts with the material universe. Emperor's presence in the warp, maintained by his internment on the Golden Throne and the daily sacrifice of thousands of psychers, represents a unique phenomenon in the Immaterium. Acting as both a beacon for humanity and a bulwark against the forces of chaos, the Emperor's psychic presence in the warp raises questions about the nature of godhood in the 40k universe and the potential for mortals to ascend to a higher state of being through their connection to the Immaterium. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of the Immaterium, it becomes clear that its influence extends far beyond mere interstellar travel or psychic phenomena. The warp is, in many ways, the underlying fabric that binds the entire 40k universe together, a cosmic force that shapes the destinies of individuals and empires alike. Understanding the warp is key to grasping the true nature of the conflicts that rage across the galaxy, for in the end, the battle between order and chaos, reality and unreality, is fought not just on distant battlefields, but within the very soul of every sentient being. Myriad factions vie for control and influence over the Immaterium, each with their own unique perspective and approach. This cosmic struggle shapes the fate of countless worlds and civilizations across the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Imperium of Man maintains a complex and often contradictory relationship with the warp. Officially, the Imperial cult teaches that the warp is a realm of evil and corruption, home to demons and heretics. Vigilance against its influence is preached by the ecclesiarchy, while the Inquisition ruthlessly hunts down any signs of chaos taint. Yet, paradoxically, the Imperium relies heavily on the warp for interstellar travel and communication, creating a necessary but uneasy dependence on this dangerous realm. Adeptus Mechanicus, the tech priests of Mars, seek to understand and harness the power of the warp through technology. Their ceaseless quest for knowledge drives them to develop devices like Gellar fields and warp drives, walking a fine line between technological innovation and tech heresy. Some within the Mechanicus delve into forbidden studies, attempting to merge the principles of science with the mystical nature of the Immaterium. Space Marines, the Emperor's finest warriors, have a unique relationship with the warp. While they are trained to resist its corrupting influence, many chapters employ librarians, powerful psychers who wield the energies of the Immaterium in battle. The Grey Knights, a secretive chapter of psychically gifted Space Marines, specialize in combating demonic threats, their very existence a closely guarded secret within the Imperium. Chaos forces fully embrace the power of the warp, viewing it as a source of ultimate power and freedom from the oppressive rule of the Imperium. Traitor legions, led by the Chaos Space Marines, seek to tear down the barriers between real space and the Immaterium, ushering in a new age of chaos. Chaos sorcerers delve deep into forbidden knowledge, wielding warp energies that can reshape reality itself. Eldar, having suffered greatly due to their past interactions with the warp, take a more cautious approach. Craftworld Eldar use complex systems of runes and rituals to safely channel warp energies, while their Farseers carefully navigate the tides of fate. The creation of the Infinity Circuits, vast psychic networks that preserve the souls of the dead, represents their attempt to cheat the cruel fate that awaits them in the warp. Dark Eldar, traumatized by the birth of Slaanesh, reject the use of psychic powers entirely. Instead, they hide from the gaze of she who thirsts in the shadowy realm of Chimera, turning to darker means to sustain their immortality. Their raids into real space serve not only to capture slaves, but also to steal the very essence of life to fill the void left by their severed connection to the warp. Necrons stand apart from the conflicts surrounding the warp, their soulless nature rendering them immune to its corrupting influence. Advanced Necron technology allows for faster-than-light travel without relying on the Immaterium, presenting a stark contrast to the methods employed by other races. However, some Necron lords, driven by a desire to reclaim their lost mortality, have begun to study the nature of the soul and its connection to the warp. Tyranids present a unique and terrifying threat in relation to the warp. The approach of a Tyranid hive fleet creates a phenomenon known as the shadow in the warp, which disrupts psychic communications and can drive psychers to madness or suicide. Some theorize that the Tyranids are drawn to our galaxy by the psychic beacon of the Astronomicon, raising the chilling possibility that humanity's greatest tool for navigation may also be leading to its doom. Orcs interact with the warp in a unique and largely unconscious manner. Their innate psychic gestalt field, known as the Wag, allows their ramshackle technology to function through sheer collective belief. Orc weird boys channel this energy, often with spectacular and unpredictable results. The Orc's relationship with the warp demonstrates how the power of belief can shape reality, a principle that lies at the very heart of how the Immaterium interacts with the material universe. Tau Empire, relative newcomers to the galactic stage, have only begun to grasp the true nature of the Immaterium. Their limited psychic presence has, thus far, shielded them from the worst of the warp's predations. However, as they expand their empire and encounter more of the galaxy's horrors, the Tau may find their philosophy of the greater good tested by the harsh realities of a universe where hell itself lurks just beyond the veil of reality. Adeptus Astra Telepathica plays a crucial role in the Imperium's interaction with the warp. This organization is responsible for training and controlling psychers, walking a fine line between utilizing their abilities and guarding against the dangers they represent. The black ships of the Astra Telepathica scour worlds for psychic individuals, either conditioning them for Imperial service or sacrificing them to power the Astronomicon. The Inquisition stands as the Imperium's first line of defense against the corrupting influence of the warp. Divided into several ordos, each focusing on different threats, the Inquisition wields nearly limitless authority in its mission to root out heresy and demonic incursion. Inquisitors often employ radical methods in their work, sometimes walking a dangerous line between purging chaos and being corrupted by it. Adeptus Ministorum, also known as the Ecclesiarchy, shapes the Imperium's spiritual relationship with the warp. Through the lens of the Imperial cult, they present the Emperor as a bulwark against the horrors of the Immaterium, while simultaneously warning of the dangers of heresy and chaos worship. The fervent faith they inspire in the Imperial masses serves as a psychological defense against the insidious influence of the warp. Chaos gods themselves represent the ultimate power players in the conflicts surrounding the Immaterium. Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh constantly vie for supremacy, their great game spilling over into the material realm. Each seeks to expand their influence, corrupting mortals and reshaping reality to match their own twisted desires. As the conflicts surrounding the warp continue to escalate, the very fabric of reality hangs in the balance. The Imperium's reliance on the Immaterium for its continued existence creates a dangerous vulnerability, one that its enemies are all too eager to exploit. Meanwhile, Xenos races each pursue their own agendas, some seeking to master the warp, others to destroy it, and still others to simply survive its influence. In this cosmic struggle, there are no easy solutions or clear moral absolutes. Each faction's approach to the warp is shaped by its own history, beliefs, and necessities. As the barriers between real space and the Immaterium grow ever thinner, the stakes of this conflict continue to rise. The future of the galaxy itself may well be decided by how these various factions choose to confront the challenges and opportunities presented by the enigmatic realm of the warp. Escalating tensions surrounding the Immaterium have reached a fever pitch in the closing years of the 41st millennium. The very fabric of reality strains under the weight of countless conflicts, each threatening to tip the balance between order and chaos. Cadia's fall marked a turning point in the war against chaos. Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade succeeded in destroying this linchpin of Imperial defense, shattering the Cadian pylons that had long helped maintain the barrier between real space and the warp. The resulting psychic shockwave tore a vast rift across the galaxy, forever changing the face of the Imperium. Great Rift, known also as the Cicatrix Maledictum, now bisects the galaxy. This colossal warp storm has plunged countless worlds into darkness, cut off from the Emperor's light. Nightmarish creatures pour forth from this gaping wound in reality, while entire systems are swallowed whole, never to be seen again. Noctis Aeterna, a period of impenetrable darkness, followed the Great Rift's creation. For a terrifying span, the Astronomican's light was extinguished, leaving vast swaths of the Imperium cut off and vulnerable. Though the beacon was eventually rekindled, many worlds remain isolated, fighting desperate battles against encroaching chaos forces. Primaris Space Marines, a new breed of transhuman warriors, emerged as a response to the growing chaos threat. Created through the combined genius of Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call and the foresight of Primarch Robut Gilliman, these enhanced Astartes represent humanity's latest defense against the horrors of the warp. Imperium Nihilus, the Dark Imperium cut off by the Great Rift, faces unprecedented challenges. Worlds long loyal to the Emperor now struggle against demonic incursions, chaos cults, and Xenos opportunists. The Astronomican's light, weakened and distorted by the Great Rift, provides little comfort to the embattled planets of this region. Psychic awakening sweeps across the galaxy, manifesting in a surge of psychic activity among various species. Human populations witness a dramatic increase in psyker births, while dormant psychic potential awakens in countless individuals. This phenomenon, viewed by some as the next step in human evolution, presents both immense potential and grave danger. Ennead, the Eldar god of the dead, stirs to wakefulness. This nascent deity offers a glimmer of hope to the Eldar race, promising salvation from Slaaneish's eternal hunger. The Inari, followers of Ennead, race against time to fully awaken their god, their actions sending ripples through the warp that draw the attention of friends and foes alike. Warp storms of unprecedented scale and intensity ravage the galaxy. Entire sectors are cut off from reinforcement and supply, left to fend for themselves against the horrors that emerge from the Immaterium. These storms reshape the political landscape of the galaxy, isolating some worlds while forcing unlikely alliances on others. Silent King, supreme ruler of the Necron race, returns from his self-imposed exile. His arrival heralds a new era of Necron ascendancy, as more and more tomb worlds awaken to reclaim the galaxy. The Silent King's mastery of anti-warp technology presents a unique threat to both the forces of chaos and those who rely on the Immaterium for travel and communication. Tyrannid hive fleets press their invasion with renewed vigor. The shadow in the warp, that psychic null field that heralds their approach, grows ever wider. Some speculate that the increased warp activity caused by the Great Rift has drawn even more extragalactic predators to our galaxy, accelerating the Tyrannid onslaught. Tau Empire, long insulated from the worst effects of the warp, finds its rapid expansion halted by new threats. The fourth sphere of expansion, lost in the tumultuous aftermath of the Great Rift's formation, returns with chilling tales of the horrors that lurk between realities. This encounter forces the Tau to reconsider their place in a galaxy where the impossible has become commonplace. Adeptus Mechanicus intensifies its search for ancient technologies to combat the growing chaos threat. Expeditions to long-lost forge worlds and hidden vaults unearth powerful artifacts, some dating back to the Dark Age of technology. These discoveries, while offering new hope for humanity's survival, also present temptations that could lead to tech heresy on an unprecedented scale. Legion of the Damned spectral space marines, long thought to be mere legend, materialize with increasing frequency on embattled Imperial worlds. These fiery apparitions turn the tide of seemingly hopeless battles before vanishing once more into the warp. Their nature and origins remain a mystery, fueling speculation about the Emperor's power and the true nature of the Immaterium. Orcs, reveling in the galaxy-wide conflict, launch wags of staggering size. The psychic energy generated by these massive orc invasions creates localized warp phenomena, further destabilizing the barrier between real space and the Immaterium. Entire systems are overrun by green tides of feral violence, adding to the chaos engulfing the galaxy. Dark Eldar launch ever more frequent raids from Kamara, driven by desperation as their hidden realm feels the strain of increased warp activity. The chaos engulfing the galaxy provides ample opportunity for slave-taking and rejuvenation, but also exposes the Dark City to threats it has long been insulated against. Chaos gods themselves seem to stir with greater purpose, their great games spilling over into real space on an unprecedented scale. Khorne's armies of bloodthirsty berserkers clash with Nurgle's pestilent hordes, while Tzeentch's labyrinthine schemes intertwine with Slaaneish's decadent machinations. The mortal realm becomes a chessboard for these divine conflicts, with entire worlds serving as pawns in unfathomable strategies. As these events unfold, the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance. The Imperium of Man fights desperately on countless fronts, struggling to hold back the tides of chaos and Xenos aggression. Roboute Guilliman, the Avenging Sun, races to reinforce beleaguered worlds, knowing that each planet lost weakens humanity's grip on the stars. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Immaterium, new warp entities coalesce, born from the fears and hopes of a galaxy in turmoil. The barrier between real space and the warp grows ever thinner, allowing for incursions and phenomena never before witnessed in the long history of the galaxy. As psychers across the Imperium report apocalyptic visions and prophecies of doom, one question burns in the minds of trillions. Is this the final act in humanity's long drama, or merely the prelude to an even greater conflict? The answer, like so much in the 41st millennium, remains shrouded in the swirling mists of the warp. Cataclysmic events surrounding the Immaterium have reshaped the galaxy in profound and irreversible ways. The aftermath of these cosmic upheavals continues to reverberate across the stars, altering the balance of power and challenging the very foundations of reality. Great Rift's formation has effectively split the Imperium in two. Vast swaths of space now lie in the realm known as Imperium Nihilis, cut off from Terra's light and left to fend for themselves. This division has forced a radical restructuring of imperial governance and military strategy. Roboute Guilliman, now serving as Lord Commander of the Imperium, struggles to maintain cohesion across this fractured domain. Astronomican's light, once a reliable beacon for warp travel, now flickers and wavers unpredictably. Navigator houses find their ancient skills tested as never before, with many ships lost to the warp's capricious tides. This instability in warp travel has led to a slowdown in Imperial logistics, hampering reinforcement efforts and isolating countless worlds. Psychic awakening has dramatically increased the number of psychers across human populations. While this surge in psychic potential offers new weapons against the forces of chaos, it also presents unprecedented dangers. The black ships of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica struggle to keep pace with the rising number of psychic individuals, leading to increased instances of possession and demonic incursion on worlds with untrained psychers. Adeptus Mechanicus finds itself torn between excitement and terror at the new technologies unearthed in the wake of galactic upheaval. Ancient vaults, long sealed, have been breached by warp storms, revealing relics of terrifying power. The tech priests grapple with the moral and practical implications of these discoveries, weighing the potential benefits against the risk of tech heresy. Chaos forces have gained significant footholds in real space following the Great Rift's creation. Entire sectors have fallen to demonic incursion, with some worlds transformed into nightmarish hellscapes that mock the laws of physics. The line between real space and the warp blurs in these regions, presenting unprecedented challenges to Imperial forces attempting to reclaim lost territory. Necron dynasties, awakened in ever greater numbers, find themselves faced with a galaxy far different from the one they once ruled. The proliferation of warp phenomena poses a unique threat to their soulless legions, forcing Necron cryptechs to develop new technologies to combat the encroaching influence of the Immaterium. Tyrannid hive fleets adapt to the changing galactic landscape with terrifying speed. New strains of Tyrannid organisms emerge, seemingly designed to thrive in warp-touched environments. Some Magos biologists speculate that the Tyrannids are actively evolving to better consume chaos-corrupted biomass, adding a new dimension to the threat they pose. Eldar race finds itself at a crossroads. The awakening of Inyid offers a tantalizing hope of salvation, yet the path to fully manifesting the God of the Dead remains fraught with danger. Craft worlds, Harlequins, and even some dark Eldar factions forge uneasy alliances, knowing that their species' survival may depend on united action in the face of mounting warp-based threats. Orc Wachs have reached unprecedented scales in the chaos following the Great Rift's formation. Entire sectors are overrun by greenskin hordes, their collective psychic energy further destabilizing the barrier between real space and the warp. Some worlds find themselves transformed into bizarre orc paradises, where the laws of reality bend to the collective will of the orcs. Tau Empire's rapid expansion has been checked by the new galactic realities. The fourth sphere of expansion's harrowing experiences have led to a re-evaluation of Tau ideology, particularly regarding the nature of the warp and the existence of hostile psychic entities. This cultural shift has profound implications for Tau society and their interactions with other races. Imperial cult undergoes a transformation as news of the returned Primarch spreads. Many view Guilliman's reappearance as a literal miracle, bolstering faith in the Emperor, but also raising uncomfortable questions about the nature of divinity in the Imperium. Schisms emerge within the ecclesiarchy as different factions interpret these events in conflicting ways. Inquisition finds its resources stretched to the breaking point. The proliferation of warp phenomena and the increased activity of chaos cults require constant vigilance. Radical factions within the Inquisition gain influence, arguing that extreme measures are necessary in the face of existential threats. This shift in ideology leads to more widespread use of dangerous and heretical methods in the fight against chaos. Space Marine chapters grapple with the introduction of Primaris Marines into their ranks. While these new warriors prove invaluable in combating the enhanced threats facing the Imperium, their integration causes tension within some chapters. Questions of tradition, purity, and the Emperor's intent spark heated debates in chapter halls across the galaxy. Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's personal guardians, take a more active role in Imperial affairs. Their increased presence on battlefields beyond Terra sends shockwaves through friend and foe alike. The sight of these golden warriors is seen as a sign of the Emperor's direct intervention, though some whisper that it may instead indicate the growing desperation of humanity's situation. Sisters of Battle find their faith tested as never before. The increased occurrence of miracles and supernatural phenomena attributed to the Emperor's will reinvigorates their zealotry. However, the sheer scale of the threats facing the Imperium forces the Adepta Sororitas to adapt their tactics and expand their roles beyond mere witch hunting and garrison duties. Warp itself seems changed in the aftermath of recent events. Navigators report strange new currents and eddies in the Immaterium, while psychers speak of altered resonances in their connection to the warp. Some scholars speculate that the warp is fundamentally changing in response to the psychic awakening of so many mortal minds. As the dust settles on this new galactic reality, it becomes clear that the very nature of warfare and survival has changed. Old alliances crumble while new, unthinkable partnerships form in the face of existential threats. The lines between Psyker, Tech Adept, and common soldier blur as the warp's influence seeps ever deeper into the fabric of real space. In this new age of uncertainty, only one thing remains clear: the galaxy will never be the same. The events set in motion by the increased influence of the Immaterium have reshaped the battlefield on a cosmic scale. As the various factions of the 41st millennium struggle to adapt to this new reality, the fate of countless worlds hangs in the balance. The Imperium of Man, despite being bloodied and divided, refuses to succumb to despair. With Guilliman at the helm and the Emperor's light still burning, however faintly, humanity girds itself for the battles to come. The war for the galaxy's soul rages on, with the Immaterium both the prize and the battlefield in a conflict that will determine the fate of all creation. Reverberations from the Immaterium's increased influence echo across the Warhammer 40,000 universe, profoundly affecting countless individuals and shaping major events. This cosmic upheaval has left no faction untouched, forcing adaptations and sparking new conflicts on an unprecedented scale. Robert Guilliman, the resurrected Primarch, finds his tactical genius tested by the new realities of warfare in a warp-ravaged galaxy. His efforts to reform the Imperium clash with millennia of entrenched bureaucracy and superstition. The Primarch's rational, secular approach to governance faces constant challenges in a realm where the lines between science, faith, and magic have blurred beyond recognition. Belisarius Cawl, Archmagos Dominus of the Adeptus Mechanicus, sees his magnum opus, the Primaris Space Marines, deployed across the galaxy. His controversial work, blending cutting-edge science with recovered fragments of the Emperor's original research, draws both praise and suspicion. The Tech Priest's inquiries into the nature of the warp and its interaction with technology push the boundaries of what the Mechanicus considers orthodox. Abaddon the Despoiler, fresh from his victory at Cadia, grapples with the consequences of his success. The formation of the Great Rift presents unprecedented opportunities for chaos incursions, yet also introduces new challenges in maintaining cohesion among his forces. The War Master of Chaos must navigate the shifting allegiances of demon primarchs and the capricious will of the Chaos Gods, all while pressing his advantage against a wounded but still defiant Imperium. Yvraine, the emissary of Aenead, walks a precarious path as she seeks to fully awaken the Eldar god of the dead. Her actions send ripples through both real space and the warp, drawing the attention of friends and foes alike. The Visarch and the Incarn, her enigmatic companions, play crucial roles in gathering support from disparate Eldar factions, including unlikely allies among the Dark Eldar. Gazkul Thraka, the greatest orc war boss, finds his Wah, energized by the surging warp activity. His psychic powers grow stronger, allowing him to unite ever larger hordes of greenskins. The Prophet of Gork and Mork leads his forces on a rampage through Imperial space, viewing the galactic upheaval as the perfect opportunity to prove orc superiority. Shadow Sun, the supreme commander of the Tau Empire's military, must adapt her strategies to account for the increased warp phenomena affecting the galaxy. Her experiences during the psychic awakening force her to reconsider long-held Tau beliefs about the nature of reality and the role of technology in warfare. Sarek, the silent king of the Necrons, returns to a galaxy in turmoil. His plans for Necron ascendancy must be adjusted to account for the proliferation of warp anomalies that threaten his soulless legions. The Silent King's mastery of anti-warp technology becomes a sought-after asset, leading to unlikely alliances with races the Necrons once sought to exterminate. Eldrad Ulthran, the legendary Farseer of Craftworld Ulthwé, finds his prophetic powers both enhanced and confounded by the changing nature of the warp. His millennia-spanning plans must be constantly revised as new variables enter play. The ancient Eldar's guidance becomes more crucial than ever as his race teeters on the brink of extinction or salvation. Ahriman, exiled arch-sorcerer of the Thousand Suns, sees new opportunities in the wake of the Great Rift's formation. His quest to undo the flesh change afflicting his legion takes on added urgency as the barriers between real space and the warp weaken. The arch-sorcerer's mastery of warp lore makes him both a valuable ally and a dangerous wildcard in the schemes of chaos. Vero Tigurius, chief librarian of the Ultramarines, experiences a significant boost to his already formidable psychic abilities. His enhanced powers prove crucial in navigating the treacherous warp routes of Imperium Nihilis, allowing for coordinated responses to threats that would otherwise be impossible given the disrupted nature of interstellar communication. Saint Celestine, the living saint, finds her divine powers fluctuating in the aftermath of the Great Rift's creation. Her appearances on beleaguered Imperial worlds become more frequent, yet also more unpredictable. The living saint's presence serves as a potent symbol of the Emperor's enduring power, rallying the faithful in their darkest hours. Illuminor Seras, the Necron cryptech obsessed with the nature of life itself, gains new insights from studying the effects of increased warp activity on living beings. His experiments take on a new dimension as he seeks to understand and potentially replicate the process of soul creation, bringing him into conflict with both his fellow Necrons and the champions of chaos. Urien Rakarth, the Dark Eldar Homunculus, finds a wealth of new subjects for his twisted experiments in the wake of galactic upheaval. The increased warp activity presents both opportunities and challenges for his flesh-crafting arts, pushing even his depraved genius to new heights of creativity and cruelty. Ephrael Stern, the Demonifuge, emerges as a key figure in the Imperium's fight against chaos. Her unique nature as a living weapon against the forces of the warp makes her a valuable asset in battles where the line between real space and the Immaterium blurs. The Demonifuge's actions draw the attention of both the Inquisition and the forces of chaos, making her a focal point of numerous conflicts. Mephiston, the Lord of Death, undergoes further transformations as he continues to push the boundaries of his psychic potential. His mastery over the warp makes him a key figure in the Blood Angel's efforts to combat the new threats facing the Imperium, but also raises questions about the nature of his humanity and his connection to the chapter's genetic flaws. Lilith Hesperax, the Dark Eldar's greatest gladiator, finds new challenges in the chaotic aftermath of the Great Rift's formation. Her insatiable desire for perfection in combat leads her to seek out battles against warp-touched beings, pushing her skills to their absolute limits and inspiring both fear and admiration among her kin. As these influential figures grapple with the changing nature of reality, their actions and decisions ripple outward, affecting countless lives across the galaxy. The increased influence of the Immaterium forces adaptation and evolution, not just on a physical level, but in terms of strategy, philosophy, and the very nature of existence itself. In this new age of uncertainty, the actions of key individuals carry more weight than ever before. A single decision, a moment of weakness or triumph, can alter the course of entire sectors. As the boundaries between reality and the warp continue to blur, the galaxy holds its breath, waiting to see which of these powerful figures will rise to the challenges ahead and which will be consumed by the encroaching tides of chaos. Delving into the Immaterium reveals a rich tapestry of symbolism and themes that permeate the Warhammer 40,000 universe. This otherworldly dimension serves as a mirror to the collective unconscious of sentient beings, reflecting and amplifying the deepest aspects of mortal nature. Chaos, in its purest form, embodies the concept of unlimited potential and unbridled freedom. The warp represents the antithesis of order and structure, challenging the rigid hierarchies and dogmas of the material universe. This eternal conflict between order and chaos forms the backbone of many narratives within the 40k setting, reflecting real-world philosophical debates about the nature of society and individual liberty. Corruption, a central theme in Warhammer 40,000, finds its ultimate expression in the insidious influence of the warp. The gradual erosion of one's physical form and mental stability by chaos forces serves as a powerful metaphor for moral decay and the consequences of unchecked ambition. This theme resonates with cautionary tales from various mythologies, warning against the dangers of hubris and the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. Duality permeates the concept of the Immaterium, highlighting the fine line between salvation and damnation. Psychers, with their ability to draw upon warp energies, embody this duality. Their powers offer hope for humanity's survival, yet simultaneously pose a grave threat to its existence. This precarious balance reflects the double-edged nature of progress and innovation in our own world. Transformation, both physical and spiritual, is a recurring motif tied to the warp's influence. The mutative effects of chaos on body and mind serve as stark visual representations of internal change. This theme explores the concept of identity and the extent to which one can change before becoming unrecognizable. A reflection of the human experience of growth and adaptation. Faith, particularly in the context of the imperial cult, stands as a bulwark against the corrupting influence of the warp. The Emperor's light, manifesting through acts of faith, demonstrates the power of belief in shaping reality. This interplay between faith and the material world echoes real-world discussions about the role of religion in society and its impact on human psychology. Knowledge and the dangers it presents is symbolized by the forbidden lore of chaos. The warp embodies the unknown, tempting mortals with promises of power and understanding. This theme taps into the age-old conflict between the pursuit of knowledge and the potential consequences of discoveries that challenge established norms. Time's fluid nature within the Immaterium serves as a powerful symbol for the subjective experience of reality. The non-linear flow of time in the warp reflects philosophical and scientific concepts about the nature of time itself, challenging our perceptions of cause and effect. Sacrifice permeates many aspects of humanity's interaction with the warp. From the daily oblation of psychers to power the Astronomicon to the self-sacrifice of space marines in battle, this theme underscores the brutal calculus of survival in the grim darkness of the far future. It raises questions about the moral cost of civilization and the prices societies are willing to pay for their continued existence. Unity in the face of cosmic horror is exemplified by humanity's struggles against the forces of chaos. The Imperium, for all its flaws, stands as a bastion of order against the entropy of the warp. This theme resonates with real-world concepts of societal cohesion in the face of existential threats. Cycles of rise and fall are reflected in the eternal conflicts within the warp. The great game played by the Chaos Gods mirrors the cyclical nature of history, with power constantly shifting but true victory remaining elusive. This theme encourages reflection on the patterns of human civilization and the recurring nature of conflict. Evolution, both biological and cultural, is intimately tied to the influence of the warp. The Immaterium acts as a catalyst for change, forcing adaptation in the face of new threats and opportunities. This theme explores the nature of progress and the forces that drive societal and individual growth. Perception's role in shaping reality is a key concept tied to the warp. The psychoreactive nature of the Immaterium, where thoughts and emotions can manifest in tangible forms, serves as a powerful metaphor for the impact of collective belief on the world around us. This theme invites contemplation on the nature of reality itself and the role of consciousness in shaping our experience. Humanity's potential for both greatness and depravity is amplified through its interactions with the warp. The Immaterium serves as a mirror, reflecting and magnifying the best and worst aspects of human nature. This theme explores the dualities within the human psyche and the eternal struggle between our higher aspirations and baser instincts. Interdependence between real space and the warp highlights the interconnected nature of all things. The symbiotic relationship between the material and immaterial realms serves as a metaphor for the delicate balances in nature and the unforeseen consequences of our actions on complex systems. Entropy, embodied by the forces of chaos, stands in opposition to the order imposed by sentient beings. The constant struggle against the encroaching tide of disorder reflects real-world challenges in maintaining societal structures and fighting against the inevitable decay of all things. Hope, despite the overwhelming darkness of the setting, flickers eternally in humanity's defiance against the forces of the warp. The Imperium's continued survival in the face of unimaginable horrors speaks to the indomitable nature of the human spirit. This theme resonates with our own struggles against adversity and the power of hope in the darkest of times. Through these symbols and themes, the Immaterium serves as a rich metaphorical landscape, allowing for exploration of complex philosophical, psychological, and societal concepts within the framework of a science fiction setting. The warp's enigmatic nature provides a canvas upon which the deepest questions of existence can be painted, inviting both characters and audience to contemplate the nature of reality, morality, and the human condition. Reflecting on the Immaterium's role in Warhammer 40,000, one cannot help but be struck by its profound impact on the setting's narrative and thematic depth. This otherworldly dimension serves as more than just a plot device. It's a fundamental aspect of the universe that shapes every facet of life in the grim darkness of the far future. Fascinatingly, the warp embodies the concept of duality in its purest form. It represents both humanity's greatest hope and its most terrifying nightmare. Through the Immaterium, faster-than-light travel becomes possible, allowing the Imperium to maintain its vast, scattered dominion. Yet, this same dimension threatens to tear reality apart, unleashing horrors beyond mortal comprehension. One cannot overlook the psychological implications of the warp's existence. The knowledge that an entire realm of chaos and madness lurks just beyond the veil of reality must have a profound impact on the collective psyche of humanity. This ever-present threat likely contributes to the paranoia and zealotry that characterize Imperial culture. Intriguingly, the warp's nature as a reflection of collective consciousness raises questions about the role of belief and emotion in shaping reality. The idea that thoughts and feelings can manifest in tangible, often monstrous forms serves as a potent metaphor for the power of the human mind and the dangers of unchecked passion. From a narrative perspective, the Immaterium provides endless opportunities for storytelling. Its unpredictable nature allows for plot twists and deus ex machina moments that might otherwise feel contrived in a hard science fiction setting. The warp's ability to bend time and space opens up possibilities for non-linear narratives and exploration of causality paradoxes. Philosophically, the concept of the warp challenges our understanding of reality itself. It suggests a universe where the subjective can overpower the objective, where belief can literally shape the world around us. This idea resonates with various mystical and esoteric traditions, adding a layer of spiritual depth to the ostensibly science fiction setting. Artistically, the Immaterium offers a canvas for imaginative and surreal imagery. The descriptions of warp phenomena and chaos entities allow for a blend of cosmic horror and psychedelic imagery that sets Warhammer 40,000 apart from more conventional sci-fi universes. This visual distinctiveness contributes significantly to the setting's memorable and iconic nature. Morally, the warp and its corrupting influence create a backdrop for exploring complex ethical dilemmas. The setting forces characters to grapple with questions of means versus ends as they confront situations where compromising their principles might be necessary for survival. This moral ambiguity adds depth to characters and factions, avoiding simplistic good versus evil narratives. Tactically, the existence of the warp adds an extra dimension to warfare in the 41st millennium. Commanders must consider not only traditional military strategies, but also the potential for psychic attacks, demonic incursions, and reality warping phenomena. This additional layer of complexity enriches the setting's depiction of futuristic conflict. Culturally, the Imperium's relationship with the warp highlights the tension between progress and tradition. The necessity of using warp travel and psychic powers conflicts with the fear and superstition surrounding these phenomena. This struggle mirrors real-world debates about technological advancement and its impact on societal values. Evolutionarily, the warp presents an interesting twist on the concept of survival of the fittest. In this universe, psychic potential and resistance to chaos corruption become crucial evolutionary traits. This adds a unique dimension to the setting's exploration of human development and the potential futures of our species. Politically, the threat posed by the warp serves as a justification for the Imperium's harsh and authoritarian policies. The constant danger of chaos corruption provides a rationale for strict control of information, persecution of deviants, and maintenance of a highly militarized society. This aspect of the setting invites reflection on the balance between security and freedom in our own world. Economically, the Imperium's reliance on warp travel for interstellar commerce creates an interesting dynamic. The inherent dangers and unpredictability of the warp would likely have significant impacts on trade and resource distribution, adding another layer of complexity to the setting's depiction of a galactic civilization. Psychologically, the existence of demons and other warp entities raises intriguing questions about the nature of consciousness and the self. If beings can be created from pure emotion or thought, what does that imply about the fundamental nature of sentience? This philosophical quandary adds intellectual depth to the setting's supernatural elements. Dramatically, the warp's ability to corrupt and transform individuals provides a source of internal conflict for characters. The struggle against chaos is not just an external battle, but an internal one, adding psychological depth to character arcs and allowing for tragic fall-from-grace narratives. Linguistically, the terminology associated with the warp and chaos adds flavor and depth to the setting's world-building. Terms like Immaterium, Empyrean, and the names of the chaos gods contribute to a rich and evocative lexicon that enhances the alien and otherworldly feel of the universe. In conclusion, the Immaterium stands as a testament to the creative potential of blending science fiction with elements of fantasy and horror. Its existence elevates Warhammer 40,000 from a simple military sci-fi setting to a rich, multi-layered universe that can support a vast array of stories and themes. The warp's influence touches every aspect of the setting, from the grandest space operas to the most personal tales of struggle and survival, making it an indispensable element of what makes Warhammer 40,000 unique and compelling. Immaterium, the ethereal dimension known as the Warp, stands as a cornerstone of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Its influence permeates every aspect of life in the grim darkness of the far future, shaping the destinies of countless beings across the galaxy. Throughout our exploration of this enigmatic realm, we've uncovered the multifaceted nature of the Warp and its profound impact on the setting. From its role in facilitating interstellar travel to its position as the source of humanity's greatest threats, the Immaterium serves as both the lifeblood and the bane of galactic civilization. Delving into the origins of the Warp, we've seen how it evolved from a calm sea of psychic energy into a roiling maelstrom of chaos and madness. This transformation, intrinsically linked to the rise of sentient life in the galaxy, highlights the symbiotic relationship between the material realm and the Immaterium.